So Stephen King has been my favorite author for as long as I can remember. I've read a lot of his books over the years, but I've never read them in any particular order. So I have decided that I want to challenge myself to read them all in publication order, and then I'm starting a new series where I review each book as I go along. Today we're here to talk about the book that started it all, Carrie. This book was originally published in 1974, but Stephen King had intended it to be a story that he had published in like a men's magazine. He wasn't really feeling the story, so he decided to scrap it, and his wife found the first 3 pages in the trash and eventually convinced him to go ahead and finish the story. Even though he had written other short fiction for literary magazines and things like that, this wound up being the first published novel, and it was immediately a bestseller. And the following year we had the iconic movie with Sissy Spacek that came out, and the rest was history. So if you are unfamiliar, let's get into what the story is actually about. Before we get into that though, there will be some spoilers towards the end, but I will warn you before we get to that point. This part is basically just going to be what you would get from the back of the cover. Carrie is about a telekinetic teenage girl who is tormented by her classmates at school. The very opening scene of the book, something happens to Carrie in the locker room. She's confused and she panics, and everyone is just making fun of her, which just makes everything worse. And then we follow her home, where we realize that she is also tormented there by her abusive mother, who is a little bit crazy. Her mother, Margaret, is hyper religious, and her solution to any of Carrie's problems is to lock her in a closet with a crucifix. And in case you forgot that first part where I said that she was telekinetic, Carrie can move things with her mind. It seems like she and her mother have always known that she's had this ability, but now that she's maturing, she's realizing that if she practices at it, she can strengthen that ability and use it to her advantage. Eventually in the story, another student at school decides to be nice and gives Carrie an opportunity to go to the prom. But not everyone in school is going to be nice when she shows up. I don't want to go any further than that without going into spoiler territory, so I'll stop there for now. Here's what I liked about the book. The formatting of this book was really interesting. We have our traditional third-person point of view where we see what happens to Carrie, but then we have these split scenes where it's newspaper articles about what happened in town or interviews with people that she encountered and scientific articles about telekinesis. I've seen some people say that they did not like those parts because they thought that they were a little drawn out, but this is a short book. I got through it pretty quick, and I didn't mind those parts because the rest of the story was so fast-paced, it held my attention the entire time. If you're looking for a classic revenge story, maybe with some female rage mixed in, and you're not afraid of some blood and guts, I would say give Carrie a try. I enjoyed it, and I think it was a solid first novel for Stephen King. That being said, here's what I didn't like. I know that a lot of people find Stephen King problematic, and they don't like a lot of things he does, especially when he writes women. I can kind of see that point in this book. I will say that in today's world, if a book like Carrie came out as a debut novel written by a man in his 20s, which Stephen King was in the 70s when he wrote this book, I don't think that would fly. But obviously he pulled it off because 50 years later we're still talking about it and multiple remakes have been made. It still holds up. Okay, here are my final thoughts. The prom scene and everything that happened after it, iconic. The original movie was great in the 70s, and the remake that they did with Chloe Grace Moretz, it was really good too, but nothing compares to the prom scene in the actual book. High school is a traumatic experience for a lot of people, and I think it's really cool that Stephen King took that and then made it a story about a girl who was really mistreated and gave her supernatural abilities. I just thought it was an interesting concept. As for Sue's involvement at the end, I really feel for her. She was not the perfect person, but she was trying to be nice to Carrie, and I'm glad that at the very end, Carrie was able to understand that Sue really didn't mean anything bad by what she tried to do for her. And then we get frustrated to see that Sue is being questioned in her disposition, and no one wants to believe that Carrie was interacting with her because how could that be true, you know? And of course, nobody wants to believe a woman, especially when she's distraught and upset like Sue is, because she just witnessed someone dying. And my last point, the book ends with a bunch of excerpts about government officials trying to sweep the Carrie situation under the rug, as if this couldn't happen again. And then we immediately follow up with a note where someone is writing about their child, or a child in their family, something, where this kid is showing telekinetic abilities just like Carrie did when she was young. So the scary part is the government doesn't care. They're just going to sweep this under the rug, and it's all going to happen again one day. So anyways, Carrie gets 4 stars from me. I really enjoyed this book, and I'm very excited to keep going with my Stephen King series. I have already finished Salem's Lot, so I will have that video up very soon if you want to follow along. And if you're interested in any shorter form content, I do have links to my TikTok and all the other places on my profile. I would really like to see you all over there. Okay, anyways,